Okay, so this is kind of a continuation of what Igor was talking about in the previous talk, because I've been working on the same thing. Um, uh, he the code that he's been working on will be I'm planning to integrate into Samba and the work that I've been doing. And so Igor and I have been in communication about that, and he mentioned that. So I just want to say, a few years ago I talked about the beginnings of this in adding group policy to Samba, uh, and Andrew and I went through a lot of ugly work of merging in a Google Summer of Code project that related to this. So the group policy code is now working in Samba, and we have a number of policies that I'll be talking about. One important note is that after doing some testing, I found that the group policy client, the Samba Gp update, does work with both Winbind and SSSD. So I'm sure some people will be very excited to hear that. In fact, I'll show some examples later on doing a demo, and those examples are actually running on a machine joined using SSSD instead of Winbind, for no particular reason, just because I happen to set up the test machine that way. So I'm going to be doing some live Q&A during this talk. I like to do a little bit of interaction when I'm speaking. I think it feels like it's easier that way. I'd like to get some feedback from you guys. So if you don't mind loading the Slido using, pulling it up on your phone or whatever, using the QR code. There's also that number 089862. That's the little code for if you go to sli.do. That way you enter that into the website and you can participate in the live discussion. So I'll start off. Let's load that up. So I want to know what your motivation is for attending this presentation. I'll give a few minutes for you guys to answer. If once people start responding, it'll start popping up here on the slide here. So this will be really boring if I don't get any interaction. There we go. Want to learn about what Samba is capable of. Yeah, and we're going to be talking about the group policy in this talk. So combining that with all the other talks today, you can learn about other things Samba is capable of. Well, this will remain up, and you can see other people's comments if you load that website. We'll just go ahead and continue from now, and if anybody else has any thoughts, it'll pop up on that page, and we can discuss it at the end. All right. So I'm going to start today by going through a brief introduction to group policy, what it is, and its purpose. And then I'll discuss new policies that are available in Samba 4.14, as well as policies due to be released in Samba 4.15. Then I'll cover the policies we'll expect to see following the integration of Alt Linux's GP update code into Samba. That's the policies that Igor talked about in his previous talk. Finally, I'll walk you through getting started guide to help you get up and running with group policy on Linux. So first, a bit on what group policy is. The purpose of group policy is to distribute policies and preferences to machines within an organization. The policies affect the working environment of users and machine accounts in an Active Directory environment. These policies are becoming increasingly important, especially as companies are embracing remote workers. You need to be able to govern how they work on their machines and such. So what is a group policy object? A group policy object is a group of settings created using the Microsoft Management Console, or in Samba's case, using the samba-tool Gpo command. Group policies are stored on the sysvol network share. Group policies are associated with Active Directory containers, such as sites, domains, and OUs. Group policy objects are applied to clients in logical order. Local policy first. In Samba Gp update, we don't have local policies, but we'll be adding that. And then site policies next, then domain policies, and finally OU policies. So Microsoft provides two mechanisms on Windows for extending group policy on the server side. The first way is using administrative templates. These XML files are placed in a specific directory on the sysvol, and they indicate how the group policy management console will display policy options. The second method is actually through a group policy management console extension. These follow a specific C++ template to generate dialogues which integrate with the group policy management console. Some group policy vendors, such as Vintela, use this extension method. I'm not really interested in exploring this extending group policy management console. Here we've been more interested in creating just a Linux tool that duplicates that behavior. In Samba 4.14, we also have the samba-tool Gpo Manage command, which implements the features of a group policy management console server-side extension. So we can run this manage command to modify extensions on the modify policies on the sysvol. As you saw earlier, Alt Linux provides their ADMC graphical interface, which mimics the behavior of Active Directory users and computers, and the group policy management console, which Igor mentioned is still in progress. SUSE Linux also provides a YAST group policy management console, which I mentioned last year, for modifying just a few policies. I haven't put a lot of effort into that, and I'm actually thinking I'll put my effort behind the Alt Linux tools, because I like that those are cross-platform, and I think we should focus our efforts there, get more people working on that. So client-side extensions, as opposed to the server-side extension, actually transfer the policies from the sysvol to local policies on the machine. Microsoft provides client-side extension libraries which must export specific function calls in order to apply policies on a Windows client. They define those. In Samba, client-side extensions are implemented by inheriting from the GP extension class and implementing the abstract methods of the class. If you scan this QR code to the right, it'll direct you to a blog post where I explain in detail how to create a Samba client-side extension. I'm not going to go into that in detail in this talk. It's a really high level, or I guess low level type of discussion on how to implement the specific details. But if you're interested in doing that, then for sure pull that up. I give pretty specific instructions. Hopefully that would be enough to get you going in writing your own extension for applying whatever policies you'd like. It also has that blog post has pretty explicit details on how to put together a Admx template for the server-side extension also. So, and if you're interested in creating your own policies for your organization, we'd love it if you'd share it with the Samba project. But if you're just creating them for your own use, you're welcome to contact me, and I can help you out if you need help with that. So what group policies does Samba offer at this point? Right now we've got smb.conf policies that allow you to distribute smb.conf parameters to Linux clients from a GPO. Just as in Windows, the parameters are processed for clients nested in or below the OU with which the GPO is linked. Script policies allow you to execute scripts on the clients. This policy creates hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly cron jobs on the client to execute the script. The script must already be present on the machine or somewhere accessible to the client, such as on a network share. That's a current limitation of this particular policy. Sudoers policies distribute sudoer entries to clients, and the entries are added to the etc sudoers.d directory. And then we also have message policies, which lets you set the contents of the message of the day and the issue message on the clients. So these policies I just mentioned are already available in Samba 4.14. So if you're interested in using them, I'll explain in a minute how you can turn that on and use them. Next, I'll introduce some policies that are coming available in Samba 4.15. They are currently in master, and obviously 4.15 hasn't been released yet, but they'll be available when those are released. By the way, a lot of this detail has been added to Stefan Connie's Samba 4 book, and I reviewed some of that, and he's added some details, so you can use his book to help you walk through some of this setup. So what's in the pipeline? In 4.15, we have host access policies, which control user account access to the host. It generates entries in etc security access.d for the PAM access module. Then we have files policies to distribute files to clients. When creating the policies, files are uploaded to the sysvol share to be distributed to the client. OpenSSH policies apply OpenSSH settings to etc ssh sshd config.d, so into that subdirectory. And then, unlike the scripts policy I mentioned that's in 4.14, in 4.15 we have startup scripts policies, and these actually upload to the sysvol share when you're adding them. Now, you set these policies using the samba-tool Gpo Manage command. And so this makes it easier to distribute the policies or to the scripts to the clients. This policy also allows you to specify a single run of the script, meaning you can have it executed a single time once it's distributed to the machine, and not actually scheduled to run regularly. So you can either have it run every time the group policy is applied, which is on a regular interval, or you can have it run just a single time. We also have symlink policies. It's obvious, it creates symlinks on the host. And then there are some additional new policies in 4.15 which mimic the behavior of Vintela's group policy implementation. I used to work for Vintela, that's why I started doing some of this. So there is actually some duplication with sudoers entries and the message of the day and issue messages. So so we have basically two different types of policies. The ones that are like a migration path. Let me move on here. So the purpose of the new policies that I added are to provide, or these recent ones, private migration path from this proprietary tool to either Winbind or SSSD. So the migration path isn't feature complete, but a significant amount of the work is done, and I'm planning to do more. So if you currently use this proprietary Vintela tool, many of your existing policies now have feature parity in Samba, which is awesome. So now if you're here for the last talk, you already know about the Alt Linux group policy integration. And they've been working on some of the same kind of features in their GP update project that I was working on in Samba Gp update. So Igor and I have been in communication, and we're working on merging these two projects into one. When we're finished, we'll have all of the new features from Alt Linux available in Samba. So what does the Alt Linux GP update code bring to Samba? While Samba's group policy is capable of user policy application, my efforts have focused on machine policy. So Alt Linux has developed a number of user policies which will be integrated into Samba. This is really nice because, and they also created their odd job GP update tool, which allows applying the user policies through their PAM module, and that's very helpful. Because currently Winbind only does machine policy application on a regular interval. Also, Alt Linux developed an approach to local policy application, which will be integrated into Samba's group policy. This is really nice because we have no local policy implementation right now. Alt Linux also retrieves policy from the sysvol and then stores them in, well, they will be storing them in the Samba 3 registry prior to deploying on the system. The purpose of this is that it better aligns with the way that policies are applied on Windows, where they're laid down into the registry prior to being copied to the system settings. So the way that that their policies work is we go through each group policy in the correct order, and then lay down the registry settings into the local Samba registry, and then after applying all of the settings to the registry, then we read the new policy from the registry and apply it to system settings such as like Firefox and Chrome allow us to write policies into the registry using their Admx files policies, and we can read those into the registry, and then and then we can read them from the Samba registry and write them to a configuration file on the system to control all sorts of things. Actually, right now it's only set up to control like the home page and stuff, but there's a whole lot more that we can add. So like I said, I jumped ahead of myself a little bit. So these are the policies that we're going to be integrating from Alt Linux. So we've got Firefox and Chromium policies. So these can do the browser homepage, but we can do a whole lot more with this, and I plan to add a whole bunch more. They've got Sis Mount Policies. These are really cool. They mount the network drives that are specified under in the Group Policy Management Editor. They're basically Windows mounts that you would normally be applied to a Windows client. The Alt Linux policy applies that as a Sis mount on the Linux client. They also have printer policies, configure network printers via cups. As a side note, there's also a mechanism for disabling the Alt Linux policies using the Alt Linux Admx templates. This might be necessary, for example, if some policies are intended to only be applied to Windows clients. So you can go in and explicitly say, I don't want this applied on my Linux clients if you want to. Environment variables are policies. These add environment variables to the client. These are also variables that have been specified in Group Policy Management Editor to be applied to Windows clients. You've got firewall policies that add firewall rules to the client, which come from the Group Policy Management Editor policies also in Windows Firewall. And then we have folder policies. These are kind of nice. They create folders on the client, which are specified by the Group Policy Management preferences. Then we also have time server policies, which add time servers to the NTP client configuration, which are specified by the Windows time servers in Group Policy Management Editor. And then Alt Linux also added this tool for applying RPM packages. I'd like to expand on this so that we can distribute not just RPM packages, but Debian packages or whatever type of package the particular distro uses. So this will get more into kind of the nitty-gritty details and specifics of distros. So this might be a little tricky, but I'd like to expand on that and provide different package policies for clients. And then we also have shortcut policies that add shortcuts to the client. Now, all of these, Igor mentioned most of these in his talk. Oops, I skipped ahead a little bit. Okay, now I've got an interactive discussion I wanted to involve you all in, if you don't mind. So I want you to pull up the Slido, and could you rank what you think would be the most important to your organization? Which policies would make the most difference if it was an option in your organization? I'm going to look at the live results here. There's I've got 17 of them listed, so if you wouldn't mind. Well, there we go. We're starting to get a little bit of feedback here. That's with only one person commenting. Now we've got two. I think sudoers is definitely a big one, and that's why it was one of the first things that I added to Samba's group policy. Printers. That's interesting that printers is a big one. Sis mounts makes sense. It surprises me that browser policies are a big priority, or somewhat, I suppose. Let's see. So printers, sys mounts, sudoers, browsers, browser policies, files, and firewall are the top ones. That's interesting. I would have expected host access to be a little bit higher on the list, but yeah, that's a very interesting result. So thanks for participating. That's very helpful for us who are working on this to know which pieces are important to you. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, so now that now that you know about the policies provided by Samba, you're probably wondering how to get started using Samba Group Policy. So let's go through some examples. Computer group policy can be enabled in Winbind by setting the Apply Group Policies setting to Yes in your smb.conf. Group policy is applied using the command specified in the smb.conf parameter Gpo update command, which is Samba Gp update by default. So you can set you don't need to modify the Gpo update command, but the apply group policies setting is off by default. So you do need to turn that on if you want to use Winbind's application process. So in Winbind, we apply policies every 90 to 120 minutes. This is the same interval used on Windows clients. The purpose of the random interval between 90 and 120 minutes is to prevent all clients from fetching policies at the same time. And then currently there's no mechanism for automatically applying policy on SSSD, but you could easily accomplish this with a cron job, or I've actually modified Alt Linux's GP update odd job. And if you're interested, you can contact me about that. And I have a version that will apply updates using Samba's GP update. And you could install that on Fedora or whichever distro that you use. So in the future, we'll be integrating the Alt Linux approach to applying policies using odd job. This will probably be the standard for policy application, since it handles both user and computer policy application, as well as providing a utility for both Winbind and SSSD. This isn't complete. It's kind of in the early stages. So if you want to use what I've got, then just ask me, but otherwise wait till it's prime for use. Oddjob GP update also allows regular users to force computer policy application without requiring root access, which was mentioned earlier in Igor's talk. To load the Samba Admx templates to your sysvol, you can call the samba-tool Gpo Admx Load command. After running this command, you'll get a warning because this actually wipes away the Windows templates from your group policy management editor. This is actually intentional behavior, according to Microsoft, and you have to actually download the Windows templates and reinstall them. So you can use the samba-tool Gpo Admx Load command to install these templates also, which is convenient. So you just have to specify the Admx dir parameter and point it to the downloaded and extracted templates. Similarly, you can use this command to install the Alt Linux templates. Okay, so I'm actually going to demo that, show you what that's like. Let me change my screen sharing here in a second. Need to find my window. There we go. And So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I'm going to share a different screen. Here we go. Somebody let me know if you can see my desktop okay.
Yes, we can see your desktop.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so like I said earlier, I am let me actually make this bigger. So I am on a OpenSUSE machine joined to an Active Directory domain, which is on my right, and I'm joined using SSSD. And I'm going to use the samba-tool command, and let's just do a simple samba-tool Gpo Admx Load. Whoops. I need a capital U. So it prints a warning and lets you know that you need to download these templates from here, and then install those on your on the sys file also. Now I've already gone ahead and downloaded those in my directory here. Now I've extracted the MSI. There's a MSI extract tool. Let me see, I can't remember which package this is in, but yeah, it's with MSI tools. This is an open source project that lets you extract that that MSI. So you extract the MSI and it dumps a bunch of data inside and you want to look inside of there, and under this subdirectory under policy definitions, you'll find a whole bunch of ADMX and ADML templates, and then you can upload those. Oops. So here I've got the Admx Load command, and I've given it the Admx directory, and it's pointing to that policy definitions directory inside of the extracted MSI. And it goes through all those files and it uploads them to your sysvol share. I'm actually going to kill that because I already finished doing that earlier, and it's just going to be slow. And then I've also downloaded the alt Linux templates, which I mentioned on a previous slide there. And these templates allow you to manage their policies from in their GP update command and eventually in Samba also. Oops. I'm bad at this. Geez. Okay. Well, anyway. And I'm pointed at the right directory there, which is right here. And that'll upload them to my sysvol. Okay, yeah, those are pretty quick. All right, now if I come over to my Windows server, and if I open up my policies under administrative templates, you'll see that we've got the alt Linux templates, and we've got Windows templates. I previously installed the Mozilla templates because I was working on Firefox policies. And then we have Samba's policies for smb.conf and message of the day, logon prompt message. And we've got our script policies for adding scripts to our clients. We also have sudo rights here. Okay, I'm going to switch back temporarily to, well, let's see, stop sharing, share screen, switch back to my slides. Okay, you guys can see my slides okay?
Yes, we see your slides.
Okay. So in Active Directory, the Group Policy Management Console is the go-to tool for administering group policies, which I just showed you a second ago. Alt Linux has their ADMC, and at SUSE we have our GPMC client for doing the same, but neither is feature complete. In the future, I'm going to be focusing my efforts on Alt Linux's ADMC code, and YAS GPMC I think will be deprecated. As of Samba 4.15, which is yet to be released, I mentioned there is a new samba-tool command called Gpo Manage. This provides commands for modifying the host access, files, messages, OpenSSH, scripts, security, smb.conf, sudoers, and symlink policies. So in 4.15, you'll have this new command where you can modify those policies and list the policies, remove policies, and you'll be able to do that easily from the command line. Now, I'd like your guys' opinion. Which method would you prefer for actually modifying policies? Would you rather we implemented a whole bunch of command line tools in Samba Tool? Would you rather you just used Windows Group Policy Management, which somebody mentioned will probably eventually go away? Or would you prefer that we have a feature complete Linux GUI? We've got one user who says, absolutely, we want that one. 3 people. Everybody wants a Linux GUI so far. Okay, we've got a couple of people who disagree. Somebody else prefers the command line tool. Okay. We're tied. Well, that's useful feedback. I think probably the best approach then is maybe to maintain both tools. So we have we need a feature complete Linux GPMC, and we also need to be able to do it from Samba Tool probably. Oh, now we have Samba Tool being the winner, but the GUI is still popular. Now I can't remember if I left these polls open. Let me make sure. It looks like you can continue to vote, and I think it stays open for like a week. So if you want to provide your opinion on any of these other polls later in the day, you're welcome to come back and look at that. Okay. So I'm going to switch back to my computer screen again for a minute. And here we go. And I'm going to just show you how you would modify some of these policies, and then we can try applying them to a machine just to see what it's like. So, for example, let's pick one. Let's just do a Samba policy for now. So I can actually go in, and this is kind of pointless, but I could, well, I guess it's not totally pointless. You can come into the smb.conf and you can set, oh, they're not in alphabetical order. That would be helpful if it were. Somewhere in here is apply group policy. Maybe I'll just start from the top and find it. There it is. So let's modify apply group policy. Let's turn it on and say, yes, we want you to enable group policy apply in Winbind. Now, if we come back to here, I'm going to clear my screen. And let's do a Samba Gp update. Hopefully this doesn't crash because I've been doing lots of work on the alt Linux code and it might not work, but we'll try. Now, first of all, let's just see what it's going to apply. Oh, I forgot. For some reason, this Azure VM is constantly deleting my init directory. There we go. Now that was a big mess. Maybe I need to scale that down a little bit. There we go. So there's a whole bunch of policies in here. Let's see if we can find the one we just set. We want smb.conf policy. So in case you're interested, this is what an RSOP is, a resultant set of policy command. This just tells us what is going to be applied on the machine. And so this is really helpful for debugging purposes. This hasn't actually applied anything yet. And that should be the right policy. So we're smb.conf. There we are. So our smb.conf is applying, or is setting the policy to true, this particular policy. Now if we do, we set the target to the computer and we force and apply. Oops, not forced. There's going to be a whole lot of error message output. That's because I'm working on the GP update in my integration, and you can see Igor's his fancy debug output here, which I love, by the way. Well done. Okay, so now if we open up our smb.conf, we should now see there's applied group policy. And it was applied to our smb.conf by the Samba Gp update. Now, this really is pointless because Winbind isn't even running because I'm using SSSD. But it's cool to see that it works. Okay, let's switch back to my slides. And that's actually it for me. I'm just pulling this up so that we can look at questions. Okay, so there are questions here. Before I go to the questions in Slido, does anybody have any questions they want to ask live?
Hey, so I'm wondering, do any of these things around the GPOs make use of Garmin's work with convening them to the XML? Has there been any, is that stuff being integrated at all more broadly, or is that just left for the very interesting backup tool?
I believe, so I'm not using it, but in Samba Gp update right now, but I believe Igor's local policy is using that. Igor, you might be able to correct me, but I did notice they're using at the very least the same format, and it looked like it might be using Garmin's code.
Oh, good. It's just nice to hear that getting another life. You know, a bit like my comments in my last talk of a project that was a bit standalone for one particular need. It's always good when it gets picked up into broader things. It keeps things alive.
Yeah, I think it's being used is going to be used for local policy. So yeah, that is cool. That's got a good purpose. Okay, I'm going to go through the comments in Slido. So let's see. Usually customers switching from Windows to Linux bring their habits. I think that's why printers and browsers are important in big enterprise environments. That's not a question, but a comment. That's a very good point. So bringing printers and browsers is why people need those policies. Is because they're switching from Windows to Linux. Okay. Wiping the templates won't affect existing GPOs, will it? Wiping the templates. Oh, no, it will not. That is a very good question. No, when you upload your Admx policies or your Admx templates to the sysvol, and it initially blows away all of the the GUI. That's all it does. The actual policy stays on the sysvol, actually in a different place. So the ADMX templates get stored in this policy definitions folder, and adding templates to that directory blows away everything. It basically tells Microsoft to stop using the Windows installed templates and only use the ones that I find on the sysvol. Now that will not affect policies that are already sitting on the on your sysvol in the GPO directories. So that won't hurt anything there. And of course, once you install the Windows templates into your sysvol, then you'll be able to modify those policies and you'll see that they're still there. And so that doesn't hurt those at all. Okay, next one. What about pseudo rules from LDAP, like is implemented in FreeIPA? Yes, somebody asked me about this before. So the questions here are anonymous, but I wonder if it's the same person. So I've had this question before. We certainly can create a group policy client-side extension that just grabs from LDAP. So yes, that's absolutely a possibility, and I have not really looked into it because I don't really know how FreeIPA does it, but yes, we can absolutely do that. In fact, it would not be very hard. You basically just copy and paste the existing pseudo rules client-side extension and just modify it to point at LDAP and read those settings instead of reading it from the sysvol. So yes, that can be done. If somebody wants to help me with that, I just don't know how that's implemented and where to read things from. If somebody's familiar with that and wants to walk me through doing it, I'm more than happy to do it.
Yeah, a short note about this. The actual sudo work is done by SSSD. So SSSD downloads things from LDAP, and it has a plugin already in sudo that allows to communicate with SSSD to read the rules and show them as they should be in sudo.
Okay, so you wouldn't want this extension running with SSSD then, because SSSD already does this?
Yeah, and it can read them from Active Directory or any other LDAP source as well. The question is how you manage those rules in the other LDAP instances, because in IPA, there are management tools that allow you to do this, but not in like AD and so on. So you definitely would probably like to have a client-side extension that transforms the pseudo rules from GPOs into something that SSSD can read from its own local cache database. Then it will work just transparently.
Okay. Anyway, I'd almost think that the only place where we would use that then is if we're running Winbind and we want to apply the pseudo rules that someone has uploaded to AD. That's probably the only use case there, because if you're using SSSD, there's no point. One more question. So what advantage does the Samba registry give? Better handling when different policies have overruling settings? I think the purpose here was Alt Linux really wanted to do this because this is the way that Windows does it, is that we overlay the policies on top of each other in the physical registry, and then we apply what is left to as the policy, and that's basically the reason. And I'm not sure what this last couple of comments mean. I think they're out of context. All of the things and none of the above. I don't know what context those were made in. Anyway, I am out of time. Thank you, everybody. If you want to continue making comments on my Slido thing, you can send me questions there, or you can reach out to me directly, dmulder@samba.org. And thanks.